Okay. Okay, I'm ready. Whenever you say we can start.
A very good morning to everyone present here. With the blessings of Shiromani Mastnath Ji and our Honorable Chancellor Baba Balak Nath Ji, we have stepped successfully into the fourth day of Refresher Program 2021. Before moving ahead, I would like to thank everyone present here for joining the fourth day of this program conducted by BMU. I, Dr. Nisha, Assistant Professor from Faculty of Ayurveda, affectionately greet you on behalf of our esteemed university with a hope that you will have a great day ahead. Yesterday, we covered the topic role of data analytics in present research scenario in first session, followed by ethics with respect to science and research in second session. And it's my pleasure to walk you through today's schedule with topic redundant publications and introduce you all to our prestigious speaker and delegates who have shared their valuable time from around the world just for the sake of sharing their insight with the future researcher and to enhance our knowledge. The aim of this event to augment the knowledge of the researchers in their respective field. PMU presents a great platform to this event to showcase its fountain of knowledge on this topic. That's why it's a matter of great pride that we have around 1,500 participants from around the world, making these 14 days event a great success. So with great honor, I am here to introduce you to our guest speaker, Professor Dr. Rajat Khera. Dr. Rajat graduated from Allahabad University with BTech Agriculture Engineering in 1988. He received his PhD on topic investigating the link between service quality, customer satisfaction, value, and behavioral outcomes in retail banking and financial services from University School of Management Studies, Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, Dwarka, New Delhi in 2014. He worked with many reputed institutions and currently he is professor and director research in Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies located in Faridabad, Haryana. His employment experience made me more proud of him after noting the different corporations and foundations he managed. So everyone join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Professor Dr. Rajat Khera. Please, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Nisha. And currently, I'm working with Jain deemed to be University at Bangalore.
Sorry, sir.
No, it's okay. Doesn't matter. I was previously with Manav Rachna University, International University, as a director, research, and professor in management. So I am grateful to BM University and Dr. Devendra Kumar for inviting me and giving me this platform to share some of my understanding, knowledge, and experiences with all of you. I hope to make this an interactive session and we should be able to uh, learn from each other. It doesn't mean that I am taking the session, so I know everything. Hopefully, there is no end to learning, and I look at this as a learning experience. So with that, I would like to start this session. And The first, let me just start the slideshow. So let us first understand why this concept, why we are having this session. So you see in research and publication, there are some issues of ethics. And what are these issues and why ethics are so important? And if you see, ethical issues have become so important that sometimes those who indulge in unethical practices, they get blacklisted or significant loss of reputation and career, and even in some cases they may go to jail, like happened in one case with the vice chancellor of Delhi University. He had to go to jail for one day. So there are both legal and reputational issues related to ethics, and we don't, in many cases, we don't take it very seriously, but it may have very far-reaching consequences for our career and our academic and professional future. So some of the issues of ethical standards are related to high quality scientific publications, giving credit to authors, and public trust in scientific findings. So redundancy or redundant publications is mostly an issue related to public trust in scientific findings and of high quality scientific publications. So what are these issues of publication ethics? So in fact, this is the topic which we will be mostly dealing with today. One of the significant issues is of data accuracy. So if you see people start falsifying data, fabricating data, reporting data in a very biased manner with the intention to get, more publications or intention to, uh, you know, show some results. All this leads to poor quality of scientific publication, and it all affects the future of scientific research. It also leads to loss of trust of public in the confidence of people in the scientific research. As you all know, many of us feel कि ये जो है publication तो game है. I've heard many times people saying ये तो game होता है, इसमें आप formula लगा लो या कुछ. So all these are actually because of certain malpractices being done by certain people, which affects the whole quality of the scientific research, and this affects all the people in the scientific community and research community. So academician and researchers as a whole are significantly impacted, and is these kind of practices. Another option issue which we will be discussing today is of redundant publications. Now, redundant publications here, we have mentioned three types: overlapping, duplicate, and salami slicing, which we will be discussing in more detail in today's session. Now, what happens is many times we send our publication to multiple journals. If it get accepted, we also publish it in multiple journal. Sometimes we paraphrase the one, like I have written one article, then I rewrite it in some way to avoid the plagiarism, and then again I send it to different journal and keep publishing it. I have seen many such authors who have, even the same title, they don't even change the title, and they keep publishing this time in 2 to 3 journals, the same content, the same uh, research. And there are even more serious things where people, change the context. For example, a study done in mobile services industry, they may show it in FMCG and publish it as another study. Now, these are very, very serious issues, and all these come under the concept of redundant publications, which we'll be discussing in more detail. Other forms of unethical practices could be not taking approval of the concerned regulatory bodies or the review boards. Sometimes we do research, which is we collect data under certain. If anybody has any questions, you can always interrupt me. I have no problems. We can always have a discussion at any point of time. And sometimes, we collect data without adequately informing the participants. And so what happens is there is a significant chance of results being biased, or they are not being, the accuracy of the data becomes questionable. So other forms of ethics issues are avoiding any form of plagiarism or not taking prior permissions, violating copyright and such kind of prior permissions which are required. sometimes we do not protect the identity of the participants who have confidentially, like let's say I'm doing a qualitative study on on let us say black money. Now the point is, some people may trust me, and they may share certain information with me, but if I do not protect their identity, this has serious consequences, and for the person who is giving the interview, and it affects the whole scientific community, because people lose trust in academic research. And so these kind of practices are all considered as unethical practices. For example, doing clinical trials without the knowledge of the participant, or without adequately taking permissions from the government authorities. So sometimes you see doctors, they want to show high level of research. So what they do is they try do clinical trials on their patients, even sometimes informing the patients, but without taking proper government approval. As a result of which, the results become questionable, because if you publish these kind of data, they may not be accepted as valid data by the concerned authorities, and that would again raise question mark of the quality of research being done. Similarly, sometimes we, do not give proper credit. It's very common. Like even today, I am presenting some of the things. I may not be giving credit to the source from which I have taken it. Obviously, I am not publishing this, so but still, it is also expected that whenever we use somebody's ideas, even if we are paraphrasing, we must give proper credit to the work which has been done by somebody earlier. Otherwise, it will lead to all kinds of, chaos in the academic publication, because we don't know whether this idea is original, or it is somebody else's idea, or the author is modifying the idea, or he is bringing some new value into it, creating some changes. So that whole concept of research being the aggregation of new knowledge, creation of new knowledge through a cooperative process, and process of peer review and all, it all becomes very much disturbed, because if we start taking credit for other people's ideas, there will be a whole lot of chaos. We don't know who's how that concept, who has given the concept, what was the progression of the concept, how did it develop over a period of time, and how it is evolving. So there is a complete, it will lead to complete kind of validity issues will be there, whether this research is really valid. Similarly, if the same research is presented to multiple journals, now the person may think he is very smart, he has got multiple publication, but what happens to the whole research community? A research which was just one outcome may be presented as two or three or multiple outcome. Now what will happen is that it will somebody, when we try to, somebody does a literature review, or somebody is trying to do a meta analysis, so that whole result will be biased. It will be invalid, because he will be counting one study as three studies or two studies, and this will bias the whole results. So these kind of practices are considered very, very serious, uh, unethical issues, and they are being taken, now being considered as and penalized with serious consequences. Similarly, about authorship. Now, there could be people who are writing ghost, like it is very common nowadays. Like in PhD, I'm aware at least of certain people who write thesis for others, and they don't. There is ghost authorship, or there is, so these kind of things create another kind of issues in validity of the research, because research is based on also identifying the authors and who has contributed, because so we that way we can understand how research is progressing, and how it is research is the whole evolution of research, and how the knowledge is being created. Now, if people start taking ghost authorship and start don't use the proper people. I mean, if contributions are not given to the acknowledged to the correct authors, so that could create one issue is of legal issues. Somebody, I mean, like it's very common. If you don't, if I have done some work and somebody with someone and my name is excluded, I can go to court and challenge that this is intellectual theft. And this is covered under the Indian laws also, where people may have, like this happened with one professor of Delhi University who was also vice chancellor. He put his name in somebody's research, and that person went to, I think it was a PhD scholar, that person went to court, and the vice chancellor has convicted and yet to spend 1 day in jail. So many such senior people, established, reputed, scientists and all, at some stage, if even after 20 years, 30 years, if somebody challenges you or some such thing comes to light, that destroys your total reputation and career. And you may even have to face legal consequences. So properly acknowledging the authors, who's the first author, second author, who's the third author, depending on their contribution, and the awareness of co-authors of the content of publication. I mean, everybody, it's not like somebody doesn't even know what is being published. All the authors should know what is being they are publishing, what is the content. Because tomorrow, let us say I publish something and I put somebody names and it comes under ethical issue, that person will also be prosecuted without knowing what has happened. And there has to be a proper ethics of authorship, where we must give proper credit to the authors, and we must recognize or identify who are the authors who are contributing and what is their contribution. So this is another issue which is not taken very seriously, because in Indian context also, sometimes the guide, the supervisor says, "Oh, you put my name." See, putting name is okay, but the point is there should be a contribution. That is unethical. If you put somebody's name without contribution, that is misleading the scientific community. Now I am a person of marketing, but somebody is putting my name in finance publications. So it is basically creating a total misunderstanding of who's contributing what, or what is the level, knowledge level of that. That I may get a promotion, my university may give me increments and all, but the point is it is basically misleading the university and the academic community and all concerned. Similarly, another issue of publication ethics could be conflict of interest, where I have some relatives and I who are financing my research. I put their names, or if I am collecting data from people who have a vested interest, like it is very common. Uh, like if you take vaccine, results of vaccination, like which one is how efficacious, what is the efficacy and all, you will find there could be significant issues of conflict of interest. Like if a company is, some company is financing this research, then obviously they would like the results to be in their favor. So whether there is a declaration of this conflict of interest, and whether the this is influencing the results, is another issue which affects the validity and the genuineness of the data or the results. So authorship criteria normally is based on whether somebody has given the idea, the design, the acquired data. Any kind of contribution should be acknowledged, and this is the basics of where publication ethics, which we will again. Uh, this is the groundwork. This is the background under which we are going to have today's session. Now, who decides these guidelines, and how do you handle this misconduct? So these are some of the standard setting organizations. They set the guidelines. They decide what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what is the processes to be followed, what are the penalties. So COPE is the most largest and most significant. It is the International Forum of Editors and Publishers of all peer-reviewed journals, and it provides the code of conduct that define what is publication ethics. It advises editors and authors how to handle such kind of misconduct, how to avoid such kind of misconduct, and what are the ethical practices. Similarly, World Association of Medical Editors is another ethics standards setting organization. So normally, what is publication misconduct? Because our topic today is related to this concept and this issue. So publication misconduct is data fabrication, falsification, or plagiarism in proposing, performing, or reviewing research, or in reporting research results. So please look at each of these terms very carefully. When we say data fabrication, what do we mean by data fabrication? Like, let us say I have done a study, but the data is not matching my expected results, or I am not getting any result. So I may create some data, or I may produce some data by my own for the purpose of my research, and so that I get the some output or some from my efforts. Now, what is happening is I am actually totally creating a invalid research and showing it as a genuine research. Another one could be falsification of data. Now I'm not getting the results, so I select certain data which is giving, which is favorable to my result, or I don't. I look at. I mean, the way I analyze data is not. It's not fitting in with my methods, but I use certain method to get. Like instead of if I do a regression, instead of doing linear or those kind of regression, I do some logistic regression so that I can get the results. And these kind of ways in which we collect data, we present data, we analyze data, it could lead to misleading results, which are not, I mean, the results which do not actually present the correct picture or the correct view. Another aspect could be plagiarism. Now, what is plagiarism? Like, I pick up somebody's data or somebody's research and I show it, I present it in my context, I show it as my research in various ways, whether it is in the results or it is in the methodology, but I am showing it as if it is my original work. So you will find actually, if you look at it genuinely, 90% of published research would be plagiarism in one way or the other. But yes, if it adds some value, if you are acknowledging somebody's research, like you take some idea, you acknowledge it, and then you show what you have done, then it is not considered unethical. But if I take somebody's ideas and I, recycle it or I represent it as my own idea or my own finding, all these are some kind of plagiarism. And this is also something which comes in as redundant publication, because redundant publication basically is doing something which has no added value. Now, if you take any, few articles published even in high quality journals, there is a quite a possibility that what the person has done is just, let us say, taken some research from. Let me give an example. Let us say a research conducted in, the technology sector on, let us say, technology adoption or in certain product. Now I take up that research, the same idea, the same methodology, the same process, and I do it in some other sector. I do it in some other kind of, context. So what am I doing basically? Am I doing something new? Am I doing something significant? Am I creating some new? Am I furthering the research? You know, so these are very common practices. If you find in, if you see most of the published article, what they do is they pick up some research paper as a base paper or as a template, and then you do the same thing in something else, like whether it is another industry or let's say a study done with the US. Now you do it in India. Now I have seen that is very common. People say that I am doing it because no, it was not done in India, or it was not done in Rohtak, or it was done with males, but it has not been done with females. Now, all this basically is a form of plagiarism, because it does not, there is no logic, or there is no significant reason or significant basis for doing this research. And the whole idea is just to publish. So obviously, if I send this paper to some journal, now no editor or no publication has that resource that they check each and every paper published, or they compare the results with every paper published. Plagiarism software only compares the word or the text, or to some extent the figures. But beyond that, they cannot check the ideas. They cannot, find out whether some idea has been plagiarized, or some, concept has been plagiarized. That is not, that software is still not available. Maybe in the future we will have with artificial intelligence, but right now we don't have those kind of software. Now this kind of plagiarism is very common. What people do is, I want to publish a paper, go pick up some paper published in some journal, let us say with US data, do the same thing with minor, modifications plus minus in another context, another industry, another group of customer, and then present it as something new. Now, all this is considered as publication misconduct actually, and if it is caught, if it is found to be that you have done misconduct, and there could be which I told you, consequences can be very significant. So these are some of the examples, and what are the causes? Obviously, to improve our CV. Nowadays in academics, if you don't publish, you are let us say you may not even be able to retain your job. So promotion, academic advancement, getting grants sanctioned. Now, if you apply for grants, they ask for your H index, they ask for your number of publications in past few years to assess your academic standard or quality. So people may indulge in these kind of practices so that they can, very common is competition. If my colleague published 2 paper, I should publish 4 paper. If somebody has published 4 paper, I should publish 8 papers. So this has become another, with the new uh, criteria, the new, accreditation norms and all those things. Every university, every college has trying to publish more and more papers at any cost. Now that has led to high level of plagiarism also, whether it is self-plagiarism or redundant publications. People are just interested in the volume of publication without considering its impact on the academic research. And the point is, if you see now, even there is a high level of awareness and in the academic community, and later on, if these things are if you once they are identified or they are proven, you have to retract your papers. So you will find every year 20-30% papers are being retracted also, those which have been published. Now, India's contribution to research publication is not even, 5% maximum, maybe 3 to 4%. And the countries which have bigger contributions, like US, China, and European countries, Japan, and all, so there you will find that even they have this issue, and the percentage of publication they have to retract. Retract means even after publishing, the publication can get cancelled or withdrawn. So you will find that due to high level of competition and within colleagues, desire to prove professional supremacy and becoming, guides, internal, external examiners, publication become priority, and because of that, these malpractices also have proliferating. Uh, it's not moving. Okay, right. So just let me see. Sorry. So what are these types of publication misconduct? If you see, these are some of the misconducts which are very common, which I discussed. As plagiarism is one. Gift authorship, like, okay, I do something and I don't put my name as author, or I give a authorship gift to someone. It is very common in PhD. The scholar always gives gift authorship to their guides. And that is also considered a kind of publication misconduct. So there should be some contribution by the guide. Otherwise, it's not considered a ethical practice. Similarly, ghost authorship, which I discussed earlier, there are ghost writers who are writing PhD thesis, journal articles for others and making money out of it. They're charging. For example, I have come to know some people are charging just a few as a retainership, about 1 lakh per year, and for which they write articles or do the PhD work of others. Now, this is not a right practice, because ultimately A is becoming a PhD, but A has no knowledge, A has no competence, and A will keep doing the same thing. So once A becomes PhD, he will become a professor or something in a university. again they will start doing this thing, getting papers written by others. And this would be a kind of now the person, I mean, this would be trying to cheat not only the university and everybody and the society, but also the academic community, because the person who's writing the paper may be doing other kind of malpractices, because he is not an academic. That person is a commercial person. So he has no interest in furthering any knowledge. So that person may be doing some he discovered some method, like if you collect data, use this, you do an SEM, the chance of publication is higher, or you do some, use some CMA for meta-analysis. So this software, if you use, then you can publish papers. So a lot of, publication nowadays is driven by software. So this kind of things creates all kind of other malpractices. And then what we will be discussing, like duplicate publication, which I told you, like most of your publication is almost has been published earlier. So I can show, I have found many papers are almost, you can say almost photocopy of the research. Photocopy in the sense, the words and the text, the way it is presented is not the same, but it is almost from the ideas point of view, or from the perspective of research, it's almost the same publication. There is nothing new in that, but it is being counted as a new publication. So all this distorts the. So when we do analysis, or when we are trying to, aggregate, find the pattern in search, like I want to know what is the relation between A and B, but there are some duplicate publications, so nobody can do a meta-analysis of that data, which will give genuine result, because the primary material you are using itself is distorted. Another very common practice is selective reporting. Now I collect data on 100 people. I find data is not as per my expectation. It's not fitting in with my thesis, my hypothesis, or my theory. So I report. Let's say I collected data on. Then what I do is I just report it selectively. If I collected data from 10 cities, I may report data for 5 cities, or that data which is supporting my results, I only report that data, that kind of results. Or let us say I did data analysis and I found out of 5 hypotheses, um, 3 are supported, 2 are not supported. But those 2 are very critical, because they are the core. That is the basis on which I did my research. They are the, if I take a theoretical model, there could be some, relationship which are very core of that study. So I try to report, I don't report those relation, or I report it as a false. I don't report it the way it has come. So these kind of practices all distort the results and distort the future of academic research also. Other forms of, we find is, we discussed a little bit earlier, fabrication of data, I already discussed it. Falsification of data, I also looked at it, that we either we create the data or we falsify the data. We say in SCM, it's very common, model fit nahi ho raha, acha, chalo, I have seen many people who are doing this, they try to, change the data so that the model get fits. So you see, oh, A और B का relationship नहीं हो रहा, तो you take the data of A and B, see the correlation, कौन से variable में correlation नहीं हो रहा, उसको थोड़ा change कर दो, तो results आ जाता है. These are very common practice, but if somebody catches you, if you get caught, I mean, if somebody finds out that you have done falsification, or somebody complains, then you can say bye to your career. And if somebody, in some case, it may even lead to legal issues. Other coins of, I already discussed, breach of confidentiality, informed consent, in the sense that people should know exactly why they are participating, what is the purpose, how they are contributing to this study. Now you tell somebody, I am doing study for my PhD, but you are doing it for some commercial purpose, or you don't properly, adequately inform people why you are doing it, what is the purpose, and how it is going to, what are the results expected. So all this is another kind of professional misconduct, and which is relevant to our study today. Another kind of misconduct is, where, we have, I told you, like, I do collect data, I do analysis, but then I send it to multiple publications, multiple submissions. Sometimes I make some minor change, like I have collected data on 100 people. In one case, I do SEM, in another case, I do regression, and I make it into two publications. So data is same, but by the methodology of analysis is different. So the results are more or less same, but it becomes two publications. Now, how does it affect research? Though the research, it should be shown as one publication, it is actually inflating. It is showing that result as two publications. That means it is giving more weightage to this study, this results of your study. And this is biasing the whole, academic, the way that the whole that field of study is being biased and becoming invalidated. And all this I already discussed, non-disclosure. So normally you will find these bodies like COPA and all, they have these flow charts of how to, what are the ethical practices, how to complain, what are the appeals, all these processes they have documented, they have the websites. These are some of the links where people can complain. Data fabrication, like let's say it's normally expected, and you will find in many cases if you are into competitive rivalry, so your colleagues who are competing with you, they may try to, everybody will try to say, oh, this guy, he's publishing too much. Something he must be doing. And you will find somebody will complain against you, and then you're in trouble. So though you may be very smart and you may think, oh, I can get away with all this, but there is always a chance, maybe in few years down the line, where some person, maybe, I have seen what happened is PhD scholar, she used she did this kind of manipulation in her PhD and used a lot of content from somebody in US.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. It's not visible.
Pardon me?
So your screen is not visible.
Okay, so I'll upload. Should I upload it again? I'll try to upload again if it's okay with all of you. Yeah. Is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You want me to show previous slides or should I move ahead now? If it's if some slides we have not seen, but it's okay. I can move ahead. We can go back later on if you want. So there could be, these are all different sites where people can complain. Now today I may, do this kind of manipulation, but tomorrow, like peer review manipulation. Now I'll tell you what happens. You submit an article to journal, let us say in Inter Science, and many of them, they ask you for some uh, professors, some people for peer review. Let us say 4 names. Now, what is the normal practice? We ask our friends, relative, somebody in the professionally we know, by please suggest some names, and those names are given. And why we give those names? Because they will not do a proper peer review. They will do a manipulation. And what will happen is the peer review will not, process will not be proper, and they will give a biased or invalid review, and it will be published. So what will happen later on? Somebody may see that, oh, this publication has some kind of manipulation, like the articles referred are false, or the process, the methodology is not correct, and there is some kind of inconsistencies. And if that person complains and it is found to be genuine, so that would come into another, you will again be in trouble, and those who are doing peer review will also be blacklisted. Now, in some cases, there are some steps being taken by journals. They try to ensure that you give some, I mean, they see there is some software they are using that if you are linked with that person, either through the same university or the same, or you have co-authored with that person. So those kind of, now they are not accepting those people as a peer reviewer. And you will find in WS and all, there is also now a score for peer review. So if you if you become a reviewer, then whatever reviews you have done, the quality of reviews, is being ranked, rated by others, and your um, and it is being evaluated. And if you do not do proper review, then you are being blacklisted, and you are not being recommended for review. So all these now steps are being taken by various journals to stop this kind of manipulation. So now coming to the topic of today's session, that redundant publications. Why I discussed all this thing, because it is a contextual. Redundant publication is a form of misconduct or unethical practice. So what are these types of redundant publications? One of these type is called as duplicate publication. These are all types of redundant publication. Now I did a study, and like I discussed with you, that I presented the results as two different studies, and I or without or my or work done previously or by somebody, I just recycled that. This many people are doing. They just pick. I told you, pick up somebody's work, you know, and show it as a new study in a new consumer, new context, new sample, or a new kind of country, or a new product category. So you show it as a different, and this, or even my or your own study, you can self plagiarize. You can keep showing your same study as different studies. All this comes under the category of redundant publication, and it is called as duplicate publication. Okay. So redundant publication occurs when multiple papers are written without reference in the text and share the same text, data, or results. So redundancy means if something which has already been done, whether it is in form of data used, or it is in results or text, it is presented as something new. It is all called as redundant publication. And let me tell you, it's very common practice. It is considered as acceptable practice actually. कि चलो वी आर कलेक्टिंग एक डाटा स्टडी कर रहे हैं, तो इसको इफ़ आई एम सेंडिंग टू अट जर्नल विच इज़ इन कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर, तो इसको कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर का स्टडी दिखा दो. इफ़ आई एम प्रेजेंटिंग इट इन टेक्नोलॉजी जर्नल, तो इसको टेक्नोलॉजी का दिखा दो. सो इट इज़ जस्ट द सेम थिंग विच यू present as a different study. And another kind of redundancy is publication overlap. So what happens is, like, the same idea or the same data is the same data is analyzed, I told you, by regression, and it is also analyzed by, let us say, SEM, and we show it as two different studies. So these kind of redundancy, where the same study, the same results are, the same ideas are being repeated. Now it's very common. You will find the TPA, TPB model is used again and again and again. Now, if there is some reason to use it in a different context and it is giving some new insight, then it is fine. Otherwise, it is all considered as redundant publication. Like, you use TPB to study mobile app adoption. Now you are using TPB for green, for some, uh, within mobile app, you are using the same in different country. Then you are using it for different regions or type of people. And the same model is there, the same ideas are there. There's nothing new. All this is kind of publication overlap. Another type of redundancy, data redundant publication through data aggregation. So, like, I have collected on 100 consumer published paper. Now I collect another 20 and publish another. Then I collect data for another 30, another paper. This kind of is known as augmentation or data aggregation, and it is also an unethical practice, and it is called as data. It's a kind of results. Another could be data disaggregation. So now I collected data on, let us say, 1,000 people. Now I publish data of only 300 out of that, or I publish it as two type of data. You know, so then what I'm doing is, basically, I am not presenting full data in the study, and I am disaggregating it and presenting it as different studies. So, like, so let's say I did a study with a data points of 1,000. Then I did now I did the study with 800. Then I did it with 600. So this kind of approach is also a kind of an ethical practice, and it is considered a, maybe there should, if you are doing it, there should be some reason behind it, some logic, some criteria for inclusion in the new analysis, or some procedure, some reason, theoretical reason or some logic why we are doing it. But if we are doing it only to increase number of papers, then it's not justifiable. And then we have the concept known as salami publication or salami data segmentation. So there is a concept of least publishable unit. Now the point is I collect data on 600 people, but I can publish, use SCM, and minimum data required is 200. So how many papers can I produce from this data? Would anybody like to answer? I'm not having any participation, and which is very not very good indicator of a session. So if you can participate, ask question, clarify doubt. So if I collect data of 600 and I can publish a paper with 200, how many papers I can produce from this data? Would anybody like to answer? Sir, you can put in the chat box, or okay, there are some comments in chat. Okay. So there's no answers to this yet. Okay, at least three correct. Vivek and Monica have answered. Supriya has also answered. At least three papers you can produce. Uh, Voice is low, so what do I do? I mean, I have a maximum volume here. Okay, let me speak a little more louder. Okay, so if you, yeah, another one says 54. Okay, that is when you use different type of combination, like you can divide the data demographically, psychographically, keep producing. But when we slice the data, whether it is by number of data point or it is by some other way, it is called as salami publication. Because when you see a salami, you chop the salami, and then from one salami you create many sandwiches or many items. So this kind of concept is also known as salami publication. It's very common. When you do research, you say, oh, why should I collect data 3 times? Why not collect in one go and have 3 publications? Or even if I collect data, I can divide it based on the, say, demographics or psychographic, and create various publications out of it. Now, this is not ethical, because it's not producing, you're not actually, there is authenticity of results is not being, it's not genuine or verified. Another could be a kind of practice is reanalysis of the same data. When I collected data, I told you I use different techniques, different method of analysis. First, I do parametric data analysis, then I do it non-parametric, or I look at data in different way and keep producing the results. So this is again a kind of malpractice, and it's a kind of not considered a ethical practice. Okay, another could be that let's say I have collected data on consumer behavior. Now, one paper I write with one theory, another paper I write with another theory, third paper with a different theory to get different conclusions. So this is again a kind of data redundancy. So normally in a research, when we collect data, it should be with one purpose to produce one. I mean, the theoretical should be collected within one theoretical framework, or whatever the conceptual model, and that data will produce a set of conclusion. But now if I I have collected data on, let us say, the age, income and all. Now one study I do under one theory of consumer behavior, then another theory I use the same data for another. So this will lead to different conclusions. Yeah. If I am selecting pilot study using, is it no, pilot study is a part of the main study. So if I am doing pilot study, it is basically to validate the construct and to do face validity of the instrument. So, but you are using for another research work, then it is unethical. If it is be considered ethical only if it is being done for the study for which you have done the pilot. Like I am doing a study, I have to construct a questionnaire for a study. So I do a pilot with 30 people just to do the face validity, then it is okay. But let's say that I did a pilot and then I am trying to use it in two studies, that same pilot results, that would lead to redundancy or duplication, and it would be considered a kind of self-plagiarism. So what I'm trying to say is this kind of genuineness is required in research if you want to be a genuine researcher. So, and let me tell you, reward is phenomenal. Publishing one high quality journal has more value than publishing, say, 50 papers which are of substandard. So the academic community always acknowledges the quality of the work and not the quantity. But in you will find that uh, quantity of research is also a very significant trigger because when we go for promotion and all, they are always asking how many publications. And quantity of publication is considered indicator of your productivity. So this is what is causing this problem. And so this, I hope I have clarified. So a pilot study is basically done to, validate your questionnaire or validate your whatever you are doing before you do a main data collection. And if it is part of a study, then there is no unethical part in it. But if I am doing the pilot for study A, then I use it for B and C and D, that would be considered as redundancy. Okay. So another could be, which I said again, is same data but different conclusions. So I can interpret the data differently. I can, contextualize the data in a different way. All this is called as redundancy. And let's say, for example, I did a study on for some X purpose on to understand why people are using this product. But I used a certain theoretical approach. Now I am saying that I am interpreting it under a, like I used a attitudinal model. Now I am interpreting it as a behavioral study. Then I am interpreting it in some other approach. So all that is called as redundancy. Yeah, salami slicing is a type of redundancy. These are all types of redundancy. Redundancy is a overall word. Let's say within redundancy we have salami slicing. So the difference is in redundancy, we can have duplicate publication, we can have data aggregation, data disaggregation. All this is part of redundancy. But salami slicing is one way of doing one type of redundant publication. Is that clear? I hope you have clarified this point. The only thing is in salami slicing, with one data, you produce multiple paper. You slice the data in many ways to produce multiple paper. And so it is again a kind of redundancy. So it is actually misrepresenting the results. You are trying to produce more papers, but it is affecting the quality of the genuineness of the data and the results. And that's why it's called as redundancy. So similarly, what I said is that you have one set of data and now you can use it with a different theory, different empirical method, a different context. All this would lead to, so some of the, you know, the following would not be now some of the examples of publications will be may not be considered as redundancy, like two manuscripts sharing very similar descriptions in methods and procedures. It's a very standard. So using the same methods or same procedure is not called as redundancy, but mostly redundancy comes from using the same data or the same idea. So please understand, methodologically, if you use same concept or procedures or theories, it's not redundancy. And similarly, if the same similar references have been done, it is not considered as redundancy. And similarly, that if you there are so these are some exceptions which are not considered as duplicate publication. Like earlier, now it's very common to do have a first send a paper and publish it in a conference, and then publish it in a journal. Now, it is the normal thumb rule is that there should be 50% difference, and you should acknowledge. So, if you acknowledge that this paper was earlier published in a conference paper and now it is being sent for it is published in a journal, so it is not considered as redundancy because it is normal practice. Conference paper is considered a work in process, and journal publication is considered a final work output. So these kind of things are not considered as redundant publications. So these are some examples I have taken, like Journal A published a manuscript analyzing large national public use data set to assess an aspect of quality of care from one demographic group versus children from another demographic group. And the dependent variable was the level of quality of care received by children nationally, and the independent variable was comparison A, one characteristic versus another characteristic. 1 year later, the same group of authors submitted a manuscript to the same journal analyzing the same data sets, assessing the same dependent variable, but with a different subgroups. Now, what these people did is first they assess, did data analysis for all the thing. Then now they are doing it for a subgroup. So again, dependent variable was same, the quality of care received nationally, and independent variable comparison A as well as 3 other demographic comparisons. So what you are doing, you are using the same data, but you are just trying to use, you show it as 3 different research output. Okay, can you explain bracketing? Yeah, bracketing would be like, can you give some example? I mean, what context you are asking? Like, are you asking in context of redundant publication or because, uh, can you, Manisha, can you please be more explicit when you're talking of bracketing? So what are you trying to see? Any kind of duplication, whether it is bracketing or whether it is any kind of duplication, so is considered redundancy. But if you are, yes, so any kind of, whether it is bracketing or any type of reuse of the same data, reuse of the same ideas, or trying to recycle the same thing is considered redundancy. So in academic literature, I have not, हाँ हिंदी में आप कह रहा हूँ, so maybe some of you want me to repeat in Hindi. मेरा कहना है कि कोई भी चीज़ अगर आप रिपीट कर रहे हैं किसी भी फॉर्म में, जैसे वही डाटा से आप नए अलग अलग पेपर निकाल रहे हैं, या वही आइडियाज़ को रिसाइकल कर रहे हैं, या वही चीज़ रिजल्ट्स को रिसाइकल कर रहे हैं, इसी तरह की चीज़ को हम रिडंडेंसी कहते हैं, क्योंकि उसकी कोई वैल्यू एडिशन नहीं है, उसमें रिसर्च में कुछ नया नहीं है। लेकिन हाँ, अगर हमने वही डाटा को मान लो हम वही डाटा से मल्टीपल थ्योरी लगा रहे हैं या मल्टीपल मेथडोलॉजी लगा रहे हैं ताकि हमारे पब्लिकेशन बढ़ें, वो सारा रिडंडेंसी में आता है। या उसी डाटा को हम सेलेक्टिवली यूज़ कर रहे हैं या डिवाइड कर रहे हैं, जैसे हमने डेमोग्राफिकली डिवाइड करके, जैसे हमने इस एग्जांपल में दिखाया कि एक स्टडी में हमने एक वेरिएबल लिया, दूसरे में 3 ले लिए, वो सारा रिडंडेंसी कहलाता है, बिकॉज इट इज़ एक्चुअली नॉट प्रोड्यूसिंग न्यू रिजल्ट। उसी चीज़ को वो उसी रिजल्ट को एग्जैजरेट कर रहे हैं हम, ठीक है। तो ब्रैकेटिंग का ऐसा कोई एकेडमिक कंटेक्स्ट टर्म नहीं है इसमें रिडंडेंट, बट ब्रैकेटिंग अगर आपका मतलब है कि किसी तरह का भी एफर्ट की वही चीज़ को हम रिप्रेजेंट करें, इट वुड बी अ रिडंडेंसी। तो ब्रैकेटिंग बेसिकली मीन्स एग्रीगेटिंग। तो अगर हमने किसी तरह का एग्रीगेशन कर रहे हैं जिससे कि इट हैज़ नो वैल्यू, इट इज़ नॉट गिविंग एनीथिंग न्यू, या रिडंडेंसी, प्लेगरिज्म कैन बी डिटेक्टेड। रिडंडेंसी के लिए कोई सॉफ्टवेयर ऐसा अभी है नहीं, देयर इज़ नॉट अवेलेबल एनी सच सिग्निफिकेंट सॉफ्टवेयर, लेकिन पीयर कंट्रोल है। फॉर एग्जांपल आपके आपने कोई पब्लिक, मैं अब एक रिसर्च स्टडी कर रहा हूँ, मान लो आई एम डूइंग अ मेटा एनालिसिस, तो मैंने 50 पेपर निकाले एम्पायरिकल। अब मैं उसमें देख रहा हूँ कि कुछ पेपर हैं जो सेम डाटा, इट्स मोर और लेस सेम, पता चल जाता है, या ऑथर सेम होते हैं या मेथडोलॉजी, मतलब वो लगता है कि मोर और लेस सेम चीज़ है, पता चल जाता है, तो मैं कंप्लेन कर दूंगा। तो ऐसा नहीं है कि सॉफ्टवेयर से ही चेक होता है, क्योंकि कोई आजकल सेकेंडरी रिसर्च बहुत बढ़ रहा है, जैसे मेटा एनालिसिस स्टडीज़ बहुत बढ़ रहे हैं। तो मेटा एनालिसिस क्या करते हैं कि आपने 50 स्टडीज़ लिए, उसको हम उसको रिव्यू करते हैं, उसका एनालिसिस करते हैं। तो जब हम स्टडीज़ पेपर सेलेक्ट करते हैं, अब मैंने 50 पेपर लिया और मैं देख रहा हूँ कि 2 पेपर तो बिल्कुल, मतलब उनके कंक्लूजन सेम है, उनका कंटेक्स्ट सेम है, मतलब वो पता चल जाता है। जब आप इस तरह के पेपर लिखते हैं तो कोई भी रिसर्चर समझ जाता है कि यहाँ रिडंडेंसी है। अब उसको अभी पता नहीं है कि रिडंडेंसी है कि नहीं, तो वो एक जर्नल को लिख देता है कि भाई जो भी जिन्होंने पब्लिश किया, या COPA कोपोए को लिख देता है कि भाई आपके जो हैं ये दो जन आर्टिकल हैं, इसको ज़रा आप चेक कर लीजिए। और अगर वो निकला तो फिर आप सोच लीजिए क्या होगा। तो इसीलिए प्लेगरिज्म, ये रिडंडेंसी ज़रूरी नहीं कि सॉफ्टवेयर से चेक हो। इसमें क्या है, आजकल इतना रिसर्च हो रहा है कि मतलब सेकेंडरी रिसर्च इटसेल्फ इतना ज़्यादा हो रहा है कि रिडंडेंसी बहुत जल्दी आ जाता है। दूसरा, अगर मैं किसी ऑथर का देखना, मतलब मैं एक टॉपिक पे स्टडी कर रहा हूँ, अब मुझे चाहिए उसमें और मतलब मैं चाहता हूँ ये आदमी एक्सपर्ट है, अब मैं उसके पूरे पब्लिकेशन देखता हूँ तो मुझे समझ में आ जाएगा अगर रिडंडेंट पब्लिकेशन किया है, बहुत इजीली समझ में आ जाता है। तो इवन जब आप अपना CV बनाते हैं, या जैसे गूगल स्कॉलर में आपके पब्लिकेशन आएंगे, तो रिडंडेंट पब्लिकेशन बहुत जल्दी पता चल जाता है। तो इट इज़ नॉट कि रिडंडेंसी कैन नॉट बी डिटेक्टेड, बिकॉज सेकेंडरी रिसर्च जब होता है तो सब सामने आ जाता है। या आप जब डाटा अपने पब्लिकेशन किसी ऑथर के ऐसे एक जगह प्रेजेंट होते हैं, वो सब पता चल जाता है। तो redundancy can be detected and it is being detected, and you will find like I mentioned earlier, मैंने कहा है 20-25% पेपर हर साल रिट्रैक्ट किए जा रहे हैं, मतलब विड्रॉ किए जा रहे हैं। तो आजकल बड़ा अवेयरनेस है इस बारे में, एंड इफ देयर इज एनी सच रिडंडेंसी इट इज इमीडिएटली बीइंग taken up. See, if you are doing a PhD with 3, yes, that is not redundancy. If you are, no, but with same data it can be, yes. If you are using the same data with 3 objectives, it is a form of redundancy, because data is collected for an objective. तो या तो आपने डाटा एक ऑब्जेक्टिव के लिए कलेक्ट किया और 3 में यूज़ कर रहे हो, विच इज़ नॉट एथिकल। अगर आपने 3 में कलेक्ट किया और 3 पेपर बना रहे हो, तो वो भी इट इज़ अ काइंड ऑफ रिडंडेंसी, क्योंकि एक स्टडी जो है उसमें 3 ऑब्जेक्टिव हैं। अब आप उसमें जो है सेम डाटा से 3 पेपर बना रहे हो, तो ऑब्वियसली आप रिजल्ट्स को मिसरिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं। ठीक है, क्योंकि एक स्टडी हमेशा एक इट स्टार्ट्स विद रिसर्च पर्पस कि व्हाई वी आर डूइंग दिस स्टडी, और अगर उस स्टडी के 3 ऑब्जेक्टिव हैं और आप उसको 3 अलग अलग में डिवाइड कर रहे हो, तो पर्पस तो वही है ना, दे आर आंसरिंग द सेम पर्पस। सो द पर्पस फॉर विच दैट गैप जो है दैट इज बिंग, जो जिस रीज़न से आपने ये स्टडी किया वो तो सेम है, राइट? सो that would be considered a redundancy. Okay, so you will find ki these are all examples, some examples, and so these are just showing what editors face this kind of issues. What would they do? So what are the ethical concerns in publication? Submitting manuscript with same data, more than one journal, data salami slicing, which we discussed. These are example of salami slicing, and using the same, like you were saying, with 3 objectives. So you will find that this is something like that. Same data. So you will find that when you are using the same data, then more or less 70-80% of the results would be same in all the 3 publications. So there's nothing, you're not doing something new in that. So we already discussed this, why people do these kind of publications and what is the harm. So I discussed with you that the harm is that um, there is exaggeration of finding. So when we do systematic reviews, so we are not able to do a proper systematic reviews, and it is creating एक मिनिमम कितनी में, सी मिनिमम ऑथर 1 है, 1 मिनिमम ऑथर है, कोई ज़रूरी नहीं है, मिनिमम इज़ 1। ओके, एंड सो जर्नल रिसोर्स वेस्ट होता है, रिव्यू सिस्टम भी आपका एक ही चीज़ को, अब एक नया चीज़ है नहीं, बट आप उसका रिव्यू भी करा रहे हैं, उसके पब्लिकेशन भी करा रहे हैं। रिवॉर्ड सिस्टम भी आपका स्क्यूड हो जाता है, जिसने मतलब जिसने कुछ किया नहीं उसको रिवॉर्ड मिलता है, तो इट इज़ अ मैनिपुलेशन एक वन वे और द अदर। and sometimes even journals are not aware of this, and they are not able to detect this kind of phenomena. So normally क्या होता है कि journals इस चीज़ को नहीं पकड़ पाते, लेकिन क्या होता है जब आप रिसर्च कर रहे होते हैं, रिसर्चर्स जो करते हैं लाइक रिव्यू पेपर जो लिख रहे हैं या मेटा एनालिसिस कर रहे हैं, उनको वो पकड़ लेते हैं, उनको समझ में आ जा रहा है। सी एक पेपर में मिनिमम एक ऑथर चाहिए, मैक्सिमम ऑथर नॉर्मली देखो इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड्स के हिसाब से तो 4 कंसिडर होता है मैक्सिमम। सी इट इज ऑल, इट डिपेंड्स लाइक यू नो, वैसे कोई लिमिट नहीं है कि कितने हो सकते हैं। तो जर्नल में 10 ऑथर के भी पेपर छपते हैं ये वो, लेकिन क्या होता है कि आप यूनिवर्सिटी के रिवॉर्ड सिस्टम में कोई सिर्फ 2 को रिकॉग्नाइज करते हैं, कोई 4 को रिकॉग्नाइज करते हैं। So there is no hard and fast rule, but different journal or different this thing may have a maximum. So it depends on the university, the journal, like a university reward system है, so they may keep a maximum number. कि we will only give credit up to 4 authors, right? So even the reward में भी ये होता है कि जो first 2 author हैं, मतलब corresponding author and first author को maximum मिलता है reward, okay? So there is no such hard and fast rule, but yes, different journals and different university have different maximum. They may not give credit, let us say beyond 4 or beyond 5 or something. Okay, so these are some of the, you know, another issue is what is the redundant publication. Sometimes even editors are not clear. They don't know what is a redundant publication and they are not clear what it should be. So these are some of the potential scenarios. Paper submitted to a pediatric journal and also journal from another discipline. Further analysis beyond original paper, repeating paper in a non-peer reviewed supplement, using same subject for different purpose, salami slices, survey study with multiple papers presenting findings from different questions. Like you said, when same data you try to publish in 3 different objectives, which where the data was collected for 3 together. No, duplicate is a type of redundant publication. There's a question by Sonia. Duplicate publication is a form of redundant publication only. So I told you in the beginning itself there are different forms of redundant publications. See, peer review system ये होता है कि like when we send our article to any journal, so it is sent to 2 people or 3 people for review. Now these people are supposed to be expert in that field. तो जो हमारा पूरा publication system है वो peer review system में चलता है. अगर हमें let us say 2 people say they accept the paper, then and third one even if he is not accepting, it gets accepted. And unless at least a majority of the reviewer accept the paper, it doesn't get published. So they have the option, they can suggest you know, revision, major revision, minor revision, they can suggest how to improve the paper. But unless the reviewer accept the paper, it is not published. So this is what peer review system is. And so, like I told you, you have a paper with different independent variable, but you are presenting them as separate paper. So the US DHHS says if the results of a single complex study, they can are presented as a cohesive single whole, they should not be partitioned into individual papers. And and if any such doubt is there, then the author should enclose the papers which have been published earlier. They should send all the. So one way is you should be transparent. If you are doing something like this, you please share the data, share the papers, share these results. And journals are trying to use software programs to identify duplications in data, duplications in conceptual. So they are using such softwares are now being developed. But yes, we don't have any foolproof system right now. And another way could be through peer review process. Like many times what happens, you send to 2 journal, and if they go to the same reviewer, then you will get, you will get exposed. And another is, if you see in most journal, if you are submitting, they ask you to disclose whether any studies have been published with the same data or similar study and all. You have to give a declaration. And in case of suspicion, the journals are being notified, indexing services and all other, even the universities are being informed if any such practices are being done. So the guideline for authors is have frank discussion about the issue of multiple publications. All the authors who are in that, they should be clear about it. And you should read the guidelines of the journal and the Office of Research Integrity. You should give the reference of all manuscript. If you have done multiple study from same, you should give the reference. You should inform the journal that yes, I have done this earlier, whatever you have done, and leave it to the journal to decide whether they want to publish or not. And if you are publishing in multiple place, then submit the copies of other manuscripts. And if you are writing a paper which you are trying to recycle and all, then you try to your research should be positioned as a part of that, like it should be continuity. So you show your research as part of the bigger picture and don't show it as a new research. So these are some of the guidelines, and how to avoid duplicate publish. Make sure each manuscript address separate and important questions. Cross-reference the manuscript. So what I said is, unless you can show it as a new, something new, and give a valid reason for it, it will not be it will be considered as duplicate. Similarly, for overlapping, um, if the hypothesis is same, the raw data, main study finding, conclusion, any of this thing is same, it may be considered as overlapping. And what we can do is, so there are no single rules how to, you can see it's a very narrow path being ethical. So it's better to be take precautions and be transparent and share whatever you are doing. Be inform the editors, inform the journals, talk to the. Sometimes you may even write to the editors asking for clarification and all those. I'm not saying there is a very clear cut rule. Sometimes it depends on the judgment and the discretion. So some of the ethical practices which I told you is you should describe how your data is part of a bigger project. You can provide a footnote or some other indication that this is a part of a bigger study and this data, how you are using the data. You should clarify. If you can clarify, then maybe you are not trying to mislead others. And so similarly, salami slicing can lead to distortion of literature. So you need to people to be made aware. If you are doing any such thing, then acknowledge it. Inform the journal, inform the readers. There are many books on research ethics, so I will share some literature uh, with Dr. Devinder Kumar, and I think yeah, if you want this PPT also, I will share, no issue. But you know what happens is my PPT will again get recycled. Somebody will use it somewhere and all those things. So okay, I'll share all this with Dr. Devinder, if it's okay, right? And so other ethical practices they need to be where your readers and the academic community and the journals, they should be made aware of whatever you are doing. And if it they I mean then it may be considered as that they are informed about this. So that could be one way to take care of this issue. And so you should they will not be misled, then they will not think this is some independent study. So okay, and so these are some of the ethical practices. And if you feel that you're using such fragmented data and it is justified, then you should, disclose it. And whatever papers you are publishing, they should be part of the paper under consideration. So you should mention in your study. If you clarify that, look, I did this, data has been earlier published, and we have done this. This is the reason. So if you are transparent, sometimes it may not be considered as unethical. Okay, so idea is that whoever is using, whoever is going to use your study or use the results of your study, you should not be misled in any manner. And so these are some of the ethical practices, and by paving proper, in some kind of, in some case it is acceptable, like same article in multiple languages considered acceptable. A reprint of previously published article in a group, or you are bringing out a collection or an anthology, then it is acceptable. And or a niche journal, like a journal which has a very niche audience, then these kind of duplicate publication is acceptable. Okay, so any kind of duplication requires a statement that it has already been published, and also that it may require public, even like another issue is is of copyright. If I am using the same study results, same data and all, then all that is already copyrighted to the first one was published. So redoing it is again a copyright violation, and you may have to take their consent. So with that, I would like to, because my session was till 11:30, I have another session at 11:30 with another. So if it's, I can take some questions at this point of time. If it's okay. Yes, Supriya has raised her hand. Yes, Supriya. Totally, what is this? Sushma is writing something. Due to volume, okay. You see, I think some of you may not be getting clear volume, but if some people are facing this problem, then it could be at the other end also, at the connectivity problem may be there at your end. So, but if a recording of this lecture can be shared, I think those people who had problem with volume, or if you want, you can be in touch with me. Yeah, some people are getting clear volume, and some people are having problem with the volume.
So
Okay.
Priya, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. Sir, I have a question. Like there are a lot of research in a particular field.
Okay.
Then और हम हर रिसर्च को तो रीड नहीं कर सकते.
जी जी जी.
तो हमें कैसे पता चलेगा कि इसमें रिडंडेंसी है या नहीं है? How do we know?
देखिए, हम जब कोई भी रिसर्च करते हैं, तो अगर हम लिटरेचर रिव्यू या रेफरेंसिंग करते हैं, तो हम एक स्पेसिफिक कीवर्ड से सर्च करते हैं. जैसे मैं अगर रिसर्च कर रहा हूँ सस्टेनेबल कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर, तो मैं टेलर एंड फ्रांसिस या एल्सेवियर, तो मैं वही जर्नल्स पहले सेलेक्ट करूँगा जो इस कीवर्ड को मैच करते हैं. लेट अस से मेरे पास ऐसे सॉफ्टवेयर भी हैं जो ये सर्च करते हैं, फ्री सॉफ्टवेयर हैं. तो आप उन कीवर्ड से पहले सर्च करके एक इनिशियल एक्सट्रैक्ट करते हो आर्टिकल को, फिर आप कई क्राइटेरिया यूज़ करते हो अपने स्टडी के हिसाब से कि वो मेरे जैसे क्राइटेरिया कैन बी कि वो आपके स्टडी के पर्पस से नहीं फिट हो रहे, या उनमें कुछ एम्पेरिकल पेपर नहीं है. उस तरह से आप पहले एक शॉर्ट लिस्ट मतलब एक्सट्रैक्ट करते हो और एक इंक्लूजन एक्सक्लूजन क्राइटेरिया से सेलेक्ट करते हो. लिटरेचर में चाहें तो प्रिज्मा मॉडल कहते हैं इसको, PRISMA, मेथड ऑफ selection of paper for any study. So once you have one of the software can be publish or perish. It's a free software which you can use it to extract articles from different database. तो अगर आप नेट पे भी सर्च करेंगे, ऐसे सॉफ्टवेयर हैं which help you to search for papers. बट उसके बाद आपको कुछ क्राइटेरिया यूज़ करके अपने सेलेक्ट करने होते हैं. अब जब आप उसको करते हैं, फिर आप एक समरी बनाते हैं कि इन पेपर में मेथडोलॉजी क्या था, इनके हाइपोथेसिस क्या थे, फाइंडिंग क्या थे. जब आप ये समरी बनाते हो, तो अगर डुप्लीकेशन है वो सामने आ जाता है, मतलब पता चल जाता है. फाइंडिंग बिल्कुल सेम निकल रहे हैं, ऑथर सेम है, उन्होंने मेथड सेम यूज़ किए हैं. और तो मोर और लेस जब आप, क्योंकि अनलेस एक डिफरेंट स्टडी है, तो उसके हाइपोथेसिस अलग होंगे, फाइंडिंग अलग होंगे, वो टोटली एक अलग स्टडी दिखती है. लेकिन अगर कोई रिसाइकलिंग कर रहा है, तो वो इस तरह से जब आप समरी बनाते हो तो पता चल जाता है.
Okay. Sir, is it possible that we use different research methodology and the result will be same with another researchers?
हाँ, मोर और लेस अगर डाटा सेम है, रिजल्ट और डाटा सेम है, तो रिसर्च मेथडोलॉजी मींस अगर आप डाटा एनालिसिस टेक्निक डिफरेंट यूज़ कर रहे हो, तो रिजल्ट मोर और लेस सेम आना चाहिए.
Okay.
लेकिन रिसर्च मेथडोलॉजी मतलब कि अगर आपका मेथड ऑफ डाटा कलेक्शन डिफरेंट है, तो फिर रिजल्ट सेम आना मे बी सेम, मे नॉट बी. मगर क्या होता है कि हाँ, बट पॉइंट ये है कि अगर आपका रिसर्च डिज़ाइन पे डिपेंड करता है, वो पर्पस पे डिपेंड करता है, आप किस लिए कर रहे हो, क्या रिसर्च गैप एड्रेस कर रहे हो, उस हिसाब से. लेकिन अगर आप कहो कि मेथडोलॉजी से रिजल्ट अलग आएगा या सेम आएगा, वो दैट इज नॉट, इट डजंट डिपेंड ऑन दैट.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so any other questions, you can post it to me through Dr. Devinder Kumar, and I'll try to answer. He has my email ID. So with that, if any other issue, then we can go for a.
Thank you, sir. The session was very informative. I sincerely appreciate your guidance and your valuable time.
Thank you.
We are glad to have you with us, and I hope we will have a great lecture like this again in future.
It was my pleasure, and I consider it an opportunity for me to learn from all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again. And now I would request my co-host, Dr. Deepti, to continue this session further ahead.
So can I exit the session now?
Sure, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all of you. Thanks a lot. Bye.